Welcome to part one of a three-part series of interviews with the man saving seahorses. Neil Garrick-Maidment, the founder and executive director of the Seahorse Trust. I challenge anyone to find a man with more passion for wildlife than Neil. How did we meet? Or how did we get in contact? Well, I saw some seahorses on the east coast of the UAE, some really big ones. Yeah, and I've never really been a seahorse fan because they're always usually pretty small. My eyesight's pretty bad. I'm colourblind and I have a hard time finding them. But now I'm addicted. So when I was trying to find out what these seahorses were, I came across this site called the Seahorse Trust. Then I looked into it, I researched it a little bit, and what an amazing charity. And what really interested me was that they've got guidance on how to dive with seahorses. And I was as ignorant as probably the next diver. You know, seahorse, go in, video light, flashlight, take a picture, hang around until you get the best picture you can, hog the space. Absolutely wrong way to dive with. And then I produced a video on my site talking about how to dive with seahorses. I joined the Seahorse Trust. Great value at £25 a year. And then I thought, this is a small charity, it does so much. What can I do to help promote this charity? So this is the first in many sorts of ideas that I've got to help Neil and his amazing team of volunteers grow the Seahorse Trust, work with other partner organisations, and as you will see, try and save the seahorse from extinction. And I say that seriously, try and save it, because the way it's going at the moment, people, we are not going to have seahorses around for much longer. You'll see that explained in this video. So in this video we talk a lot about Neil, his early life. He grew up in Malta, that's where he learned to scuba dive. We talked about what his scuba experience is. I mean, this is a scuba channel. We talk about why he set up the Seahorse Trust, and we finish off with talking about the vulnerability of seahorses and the amount that's being taken from the sea, who takes them. The interview ends with a video clip about 7 minutes long, which was made by Save Our Seahorses, the Seahorse Trust and Wild Aid, and it was intended as a film to show on short internal flights in China to appraise young Chinese people of the Chinese traditional medicine, the CTM trade, and its effect on seahorses. But it's not just that, it's an excellent video in that the introduction in it just talks about the seahorses and you'll learn. But more importantly, not just for the Chinese traditional medicine trade, but for everyone in the world, for every nationality in the world. It kind of says, don't take any seahorse curios. There is no such thing as sustainable seahorses anymore, even in the aquarium trade. Stay tuned, watch that video, it's really good. We got permission from Neil and the Seahorse Trust to use it. Here he is, the man saving seahorses, Neil Garrick-Maidment. I'm very fortunate to have Neil on the programme today. He's an extremely busy man and he's worth listening to because his passion for seahorses and protecting them and marine life in general is just amazing. So I'm going to start off, Neil, with a few questions just about scuba diving and things for the audience, and then we'll really get into your work at the Seahorse Trust. So when did you learn to dive?
I started learning to dive when I was about 14. I did it all the wrong way, to be honest. I borrowed a friend's tank and I just jumped in the water. I was very fortunate to grow up in the Mediterranean on Malta because my father was in the services. We lived out there for about 10 years in total. And so by borrowing this scuba set, I used to go in every single day. And it wasn't until years and years later I actually got any form of qualification at all. My wife and I and a team of others were part of the design team for the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth in Devon. In Devon. Sorry, I was thinking Cornwall then, but no, Devon. And as part of my role at the aquarium, I was head of living collections, but I was also head of the diving as well. And to do that role, I needed a formal qualification. So the aquarium kindly paid for me to get my HSE Part 4 So it's a commercial diving license, and I ran the aquarium with a commercial diving license. I mean, I've done over 3,500–4,000 dives in total, probably more than that, to be honest, ranging from very shallow water. The deepest one I've ever done is 76 meters on air, and that was in the Sudan. So all sorts, really. And I'm very proud of the fact that the diving protocols I wrote for diving in aquariums is used as industry standard now when I was at the aquarium. So yeah, I've been diving a very long time,
Yeah,
and
so
hopefully a lot longer.
You must have first gone in the water because you're the same age as me, so you must have been the mid-70s or mid to late 70s when you first jumped in.
I was, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was an amazing time. That was the days of Jacques Cousteau and Gerald Durrell and all those amazing conservationists of that time. And you know, there were so many of them, the Dennises and the Hans Hasses and all those people. And it was a very inspiring time for people of our sort of age group. And we have some amazing inspirations now, but you know, they were sort of legendary, to be honest. So
And they still are.
So yeah, yeah.
And they still are.
And still are, yeah. I mean, their legacy carries on. I mean, you know, and will carry on, I think. I mean, mention to anybody Jacques Cousteau, and they all know who he is and his legacy. So,
and just for the viewers, because we've got people from all around the world viewing, HSE stands for the UK Health and Safety Executive, and the Part 4 is a commercial qualification, which allows you to scuba dive. And diving instructors have to have the same qualification nowadays, whether they're BSAC or PADI or SSI. If they're teaching professionally, they have to be Part 4 certified.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the very last group of HSE Part 4 of the old style one now. It's called Scuba Pro. It's still Part 4, but it's still called Scuba Pro now. And some say that the older style course was a bit more intense and much more commercially minded. And it was a great course, a fantastic course. I was there for quite a number of weeks, you know, studying and diving and learning techniques and what have you, doing hyperbaric work, techniques of diving. And it's funny, even though I started off all those years ago with no qualifications, I hadn't learned too many bad habits, which was a good thing. So, you know, I was very lucky there. I mean, I could have picked up some horrendous habits. There were a couple that I had to correct, but I mean, you know, but on the whole, it wasn't too bad. It's all
right. I hope you don't dive with split fins.
No, not
big debate online about split fins. Anyway, you started the Seahorse Trust in 1999, but you've been involved with animals and marine conservation your whole working life, and even as a young lad, so to speak. So could you, pre-Seahorse Trust, could you just give us a brief summary of, you know, like what you did?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny. According to my mum, my first word was zoo. You know, I've been passionate about animals since I was very, very tiny, and you know, growing up in a beautiful island like Malta, I was very inspired by the sea. And as we said earlier on, you know, our heroes like the Cousteaus and all the rest of them. But it's not just seahorses and the marine life. I'm passionate about land-based stuff as well. And I used to have a big collection of lizards and snakes. And my school desk often had a snake or a lizard in it or a praying mantis in it when I was at school in Malta. So, you know, right from a young lad, I've been working with animals. And but right from when I was about 18, 19, I've been involved with seahorses, because every time we would come back to the UK, I would volunteer in a local aquarium there, and I would collect specimens for the aquarium. I'd help out cleaning and all the rest of it. And the chap who owned the aquarium had seahorses there, and he said, look, you've kept lots of marine species. Have a go at these seahorses and see what you can do with them. He said, because I can't get them to keep the babies alive. He could get the adults to stay alive, but not the babies. And that was, what, 44 years ago now, something like that. And I'm still working with seahorses even now. But I've done a lot of things along the way, from working in zoos. I've designed zoos, designed public aquariums. I had a wildlife company, landscaping company for a while, where I designed nature areas, ponds, woodlands, that sort of thing, using traditional skills such as dry stone walling, hedge laying, and that sort of thing, creating wildlife habitats. But all the way along, all those jobs were paying for the research work with the seahorses. I also worked for the Natural History Unit for the BBC for 2 years. I worked on Life on Earth and Living Planet as an assistant cameraman. As I said earlier on, I worked at the National Marine Aquarium. Well, I helped design the National Marine Aquarium. I was a curator of a zoo for a while. And then in 1999, I decided to leave the National Marine Aquarium, and I thought, right, okay, I want to carry on my work with the seahorses. I'd wanted to make the seahorse work a charitable trust anyway, because I wanted the legacy to carry on, even if I pop my clog, so to speak. And so I set up the Seahorse Trust in '99. It came incorporated in 2000, and I've been running it ever since.
Oh, excellent. Let's talk about the Seahorse Trust now, but I want to start off with, because obviously I've studied seahorse since joining the Seahorse Trust, and I understand they're extremely vulnerable, and they could be extinct within the next 20 to 30 years. Could you let us know why that may happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. The primary reason is the traditional Chinese medicine trade. Unfortunately, our research work has shown they take considerably more seahorses for the trade than we ever assumed they did. I mean, it was always assumed between 25 and 65 million seahorses a year, but we've worked out that they take in excess of 150, well, it was 150 million seahorses. It's a lot less now because they're going extinct. They're going locally extinct in different areas. So that's the worst trade. The other side of things is wherever seahorses seem to occupy, mankind wants to occupy. So it's relatively shallow water. So, you know, marinas are built, which are really important, and I'm not knocking marinas at all. There's developments, coastal developments, habitat loss, pollution, excuse me, all these sorts of different things. And so it just seems, unfortunately, from mankind's point of view, the seahorse is in the way. But it's not just seahorses, it's lots of coastal species. I mean, you know, our work at Studland Bay is a classic example. We have 6 protected species on the site, and yet nobody seemed, because things thankfully have changed now, then nobody seemed to want to protect them. So it is sort of normally mankind that interferes with everything to do with nature, and that's the downside of things.
Now, talking about the Chinese traditional medicine, or CTM as it's abbreviated to, do seahorses actually provide any benefit, or is it like the rhino horn, where it's just a substance which they think works but doesn't work, and there could be a synthetic alternative anyway?
Yeah, no, I mean, the rhino horn is made of the same stuff that's in your fingernails, in your hair. It's keratin basically. Yeah, I mean, there's no sort of alternative, but there's no scientific evidence that it actually works. I mean, seahorses are a relative newcomer to Chinese medicine. They've only been around last 600 years or so. There's even new species like, I mean, iguana penises now is the latest thing for, you know, there's no medicinal benefits at all, but the money men want to find some way of making money out of the traditional medicine trade. I mean, it's really a placebo effect, particularly with seahorses and with rhino horns and, you know, a few of the others. And, you know, but the money men, I mean, you've got to bear in mind the tens of, well, I suppose billions of dollars a year that are generated from the illegal animal trade. Now that goes to funding arms trading, child prostitution, slavery, all sorts of things, drugs, armaments, and all the rest of it. So it's an easy way for the money men to actually make money. by exploiting the natural world. And the sad losers are not only us as a species, because our planet's been depleted so badly, but also those fishermen that are fishing for the seahorses. They get the odd penny or two for a seahorse. And the sad thing is that whereas traditionally they could go out, they would get, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 seahorses, maybe 10 seahorses every single day. They're lucky to get that amount now in a week or even in a month. So they've depleted their own natural resources for a few pennies, just so the middlemen make the money and, you know, finance other harmful things. So, you know, we've done a lot of work recently on the online seahorse trade, and one of the amazing things that we actually was very successful in the last couple of years, and we have a great team of volunteers behind the scenes here at the Trust, is that people like Facebook and Amazon and Etsy, finally Etsy, Alibaba and all those are now clamping down on the seahorse trade. And we estimated last year at least 150,000 seahorses were saved purely by the work that we've done and our volunteers have done at the Seahorse Trust. And hopefully, touch wood, with other partnerships that we're forming, it will actually increase, and slowly the trade will actually disappear. I mean, it won't ever disappear completely until the animals are extinct, but hopefully we can do something about that.
Oh, that's amazing. So really, it's a cash flow generator for organised crime.
It is, yeah. I mean, they sell Chinese medicine as though it's an elixir for everything. Some medicines, without a doubt, do work, particularly plant-based medicines. But there's very, very little scientific evidence, like pangolin and seahorses and sharks and all that list of species. There's very little, if no, scientific evidence to show that that works. I mean, I'm a great admirer of the Chinese. They have an amazing work ethic. They're an innovative country, and they're doing some incredible things in the world. But that's one aspect of their society I think really does need looking at. Ironically, China, I think it was in 2018, they protected 241 species in their own country, of which one was a seahorse. And you're under threat of jail for life if you affect any of those 241 species. And yet they're benefiting from others fishing around the world, getting seahorses from around the world and other species, and depleting their wildlife stock. So there's a balance there that needs to be re-looked at, I think.
Have you done any work with airlines? Because I know that for a lot of wildlife products now, there's a consortium of airlines or a trade organisation which is actually stopping or voluntarily stopping the transportation of vulnerable wildlife. Is the Seahorse Trust involved with any of them, like Emirates, for example?
We're not directly involved with Emirates, and we have dealt with airlines without a doubt. And whenever they've been made aware that an illegal animal, or a protected species like a seahorse, is being shipped on their freight, then they will do something about it. But usually it's packaged in such a way as it doesn't appear to be seahorses. It has a different name on it. And you've got to bear in mind that every seahorse species is CITES protected. So Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species protected. Most countries in the world are signatories to CITES, and so they shouldn't be trading them without a permit anyway. And the permit is there to illustrate whether or not the seahorses come from a sustainable area. Well, there are no sustainable sources of seahorses in the wild. So unless they're captive breeding them, then, they're not sustainable. And there is nobody doing commercial captive breeding of seahorses on any scale at this stage. They are for the aquarium trade, which is a great bonus that, finally they're doing that. And we have encouraged people to work as partners to share seahorses on breeding programs and stuff like that. But you mentioned airlines. A few years ago, with our sister organisation Save Our Seahorses in Ireland, and with Wild Aid, the International Wild Aid, we put together an 8-minute film about seahorses that was shown on every single internal flight in China. And the amazing thing was that is the vast majority, particularly of younger Chinese, just didn't know. They weren't aware. And so education was the biggest tool there. We could educate the younger people, because it would be very difficult to change the older generation. And some of the younger people were actually getting in touch and saying, we're not having seahorses ever again. We understand now, blah, blah, blah. So that was a real positive, and that was working in partnership. And the Trust does tend to work in partnership with as many people as we can around the world.
Now, a slightly longer version of that video is on your YouTube channel, isn't it? Or one of your YouTube channels?
It is, yeah. Yeah, we've got a full video on there about the Curio campaign. Do you know, Brian, one of the things that amazes me is that every single day of every single year, a species goes extinct somewhere in the world.
Nobody
and
really
that is
knows
a
about
really sobering thought to me.
Yeah.
And some weeks it's even worse than that. So extinct means they'll never be seen ever again. That's it, finished. I mean, I've seen photographs of when the thylacine, which was like a big dog type creature in Australia, was kept at London Zoo. That animal is completely extinct now. You know, that's a big dog-sized animal gone.
Yeah.
Tiger species, of the six or eight tiger species, there's only a couple left now, and that's in yours and my lifetime. I mean, I've been campaigning, as you have and a lot of other people have, since the 70s on trying to protect this planet. And thank goodness, at the 11th hour, the 59th minute and the 59th second sort of thing, people are starting to wake up. And I think COVID-19 has been a real eye-opener for people. It really has shown people what can happen if we let nature.
I think one of the positives that will come out of 2020 is people actually understanding that things do have to change, not just in wildlife, in the way we live, the way we consume, the way we drive our cars, the way we move around the planet. So I think, although it's been what they call it, annulus horribilis or whatever they say, I think there could
be careful how you say that one.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting first part to the three-part series. Now we're just going to show the short video Rising Against the Tide, which goes into quite a lot of detail about seahorses, but also explains what the challenges are on the seahorse population. It's a relatively old video. Neil kindly gave us permission to watch it, but it is still very relevant. It was produced in association with the Seahorse Trust and Save Our Seahorses in Ireland and Wild Aid, and it's narrated by John Hurt, the famous actor. It's definitely worth watching, so please continue watching.
Slowly, almost weightless, they hover through shallow waters, a curious appearance reminiscent of the horse to which they owe their name. Highly unique, this extraordinary fish once inhabited the world's oceans by the millions, but research shows that our seas could be deprived of seahorses in just a few decades. There are thought to be around 30 species of seahorses populating our world's oceans today. Found in the Pacific waters from North America to South America, in the Atlantic from Nova Scotia to Uruguay, and in the waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Seahorses prefer shallow tropical and temperate waters less than 20 meters deep, where they live in sheltered areas such as seagrass beds, estuaries, coral reefs or mangroves. In winter, they are known to move into deeper waters to escape the rough weather. The seahorse is a curious phenomenon in our oceans. Its appearance is especially interesting, combining characteristics from an array of mammals, lizards and fish. A male seahorse has a head reminiscent of a horse, a snout similar to an aardvark, and a pouch similar to marsupials such as the Australian kangaroo. Independently moving eyes and its ability to change colour resemble the unique traits of chameleons. With these seemingly haphazard features, it comes as a surprise that the seahorse is actually a fish. Gills allow them to breathe in the water, and a swim bladder aids buoyancy. However, unlike most fish which have scales, seahorses possess bony plates of armour, arranged in rings throughout their body. Swimming upright, seahorses are rather poor swimmers, relying on their dorsal fin to propel them through the water. This dorsal fin beats between 30 to 70 times per second, majestically gliding them through their watery habitat. Given their poor swimming ability, seahorses have developed different ways to navigate and manage their environment. Like monkeys, they use their prehensile tail to grip onto seagrass, anchoring them against strong currents and waves. Small crustaceans provide the main food supply for seahorses. However, invertebrates and even larval fish tend to complement their diet. Their jaws open and close so fast that they create an effect similar to that of a vacuum cleaner. Food is sucked up their long, thin snout, which can be expanded to accommodate larger-sized prey. With no teeth, seahorses are unable to chew their food, and thus have to disintegrate it as they eat. While they are feeding, they produce a distinctive click each time food is ingested. Ranging in size from 1.5 to 35 centimeters, seahorses have an average lifespan of 1 to 5 years, reaching sexual maturity at 6 months. Mating for life with one partner, seahorses are monogamous creatures, observed to even remain faithful after the death of the other. Male seahorses can inhabit territories measuring only 1 square meter, while females can range 100 times that size. As a result, it is up to the female to establish contact with a suitable male, and once a bond is formed, a pair will stay together, monogamous, for life. Every day, for the rest of their lives, they'll perform a magical courtship dance, strengthening and rekindling their bond. During this magnificent performance, they are known to change colour, swimming side by side, holding tails or gripping the same strand of seagrass. However, this is only a preparation for the true courtship dance, a mating ritual that will last for up to 8 hours. During this time, the female transfers her unfertilized eggs into her partner's pouch. He shakes and shimmies to securely embed the eggs into his pouch before releasing his sperm for fertilization. Depending on the species, the number of eggs can range from 50 to a staggering 4,000. For 2 to 4 weeks, the male will carry the eggs in his pouch. Eventually, the male experiences true contractions for up to 12 hours before giving birth to fully formed miniatures of himself, expelling the offspring in an explosive action into the water. When the last baby has been born, the male has no more than an hour to recover before mating begins again. Depending on the species, baby seahorses are as small as a few millimeters to over a centimeter in size. From the moment they are born, they must fend for themselves. Baby seahorses are known as fry and spend the first 2 to 3 weeks of their lives drifting along in the plankton layer of the ocean. The life of a young seahorse is harsh and uncertain. Less than 1 in 1,000 will survive into adulthood. Seahorses have been swimming the world's oceans for over 40 billion years. For millennia, they have incited our imagination, relating them to sea gods and dragons, holding them as a symbol of strength, power, and good luck. Unfortunately, seahorses are fished for use in traditional medicine, as souvenirs, and as lucky charms. Others are caught as accidental bycatch. Over 190 million seahorses are fished each year to meet this demand, a number so high that seahorse populations can no longer sustain themselves. It is thought that between 1990 and 2000, the global seahorse population sank by 50 to 80%. Should this rapid decline continue, our oceans could be deprived of these magnificent creatures within the next 20 years. The survival of the seahorse depends on all of us. Please say no to souvenirs, medicines, and all other products made from seahorses. Support conservation efforts and join initiatives that promote a new way in which seahorses and humans can coexist. Together, we can protect the seahorse for generations to come.
Now you have to agree with me. Neil has an amazing passion for seahorses and wildlife in general, and what an interesting guy. I mean, amazing, really, amazing. You know, his passion, the work he's doing, you know, with just him and a team of volunteers and some partner organisations around the world is just incredible. I'm speechless, really. There's 2 more parts to this interview. There'll be one up every 2 days. Please watch them. Coming on now, I'm just going to tell you how you can support the Seahorse Trust. They operate on a very tight budget. You know, if we could double the fundraising, it'd be amazing. So how can we help the Seahorse Trust do more of their fantastic work? Well, there's several ways we can contribute. They've got several schemes. You can become a member of the Seahorse Trust for £25 British per year. That's one way you can do it. They have an excellent Adopt a Seahorse scheme, which is a monthly subscription where you adopt a seahorse and they send you a regular newsletter, they send you a little fluffy seahorse, they send you a fact sheet and an adoption certificate, and that starts at £4 a month. I've got one, a Seahorse Jubilee. I pay £5 a month, and that provides continuous steady income to the Seahorse Trust, and that's probably their preferred fundraising method because it's consistent, it's there every month. You can also make a one-off donation through PayPal or just a bank transfer. There's details on their website. And my own little initiative, I've just started a Teespring store, and I'm going to develop a range of seahorse t-shirts and hoodies and things. The first ones are already up. You can see them right here. There's a link down below, and 100% of the profit from any seahorse merch from my site will go to the Seahorse Trust. So join with me and help me support Neil and his wonderful team of volunteers. Let's try and double their budget and give them the funds they need to grow fast. If you go to my store at Teespring, you'll see these 2 seahorse items of clothing, a t-shirt and a hoodie, which we've designed to spread the message about not using bright lights with seahorses when diving. With 100% of the profits of both these items go to the Seahorse Trust. So please buy them and help me support Neil and his team.